Petal 7, Integration. Feeling with the mind. I believe this was the final healing I needed to do, something I avoided 5 years ago as part of the St. Ignatius retreat I participated in. It included writing about your personal history and praying over it. I only pretended I did it. I didn't know how I could face my entire life of pain and suffering all at once. It seemed overwhelming to me at the time. I wasn't ready, I guess. I was acting like I healed that part of me, but I was only rationalizing it. And that type of pain and heartache is not something you can intellectualize or rationalize through your head. I was fooling myself into thinking I was healed. The residual pain and anguish within me never had been fully felt. I was feeling these anguishes of unworthiness and despair with my mind, and therefore never processed the emotions in order to release them. I didn't feel into the trauma through my heart and actually feel compassion for the little hurt girl within me. Feeling with the mind doesn't heal. We are programmed to be living in our head and not our heart. We are not aware that processing emotions through our head never get resolved or integrated. They just keep regurgitating over and over again, rearing their ugly heads in our most intimate relationships and causing tremendous pain to both parties involved. That's why most talking therapies don't work. Talking about issues can be helpful to bring awareness to them, but that's only the first step. From Archangel Metatron. The key to healing lies in going into our pain and wounds from the past, not running away from them. It's only by confronting our obstacles and facing our fears do we transcend them. We have to feel what we want to heal. We have to clearly see and understand our past and our part in creating it before we can become fully conscious of how we want to move forward and onward in life without repeating the past. Don't set up camp. It's important to be cautious that we don't get stuck in the feeling from the past, though, and stay there. That's the scary part about traveling back into the past. We must feel the feeling in order to process it, then let it go and move on. I think that's why many people, myself included, never face our past because the thought itself is too scary and we are afraid to go there. But go there we must if we expect to move forward with a clean slate and a free heart. I never heard from my beloved after I gave him my book with my confession. I continue to reach out to him, not pressuring him to talk, but just with little reminders that I'm here for him, I love him, have faith in our relationship, and will wait. I also wrote him another letter about a month and a half later, pouring out my heart with unconditional acceptance, patience, and love. I made a DVD slideshow of all of our beautiful memories together. I stayed faithful and true, praying every day for our reconciliation for months. I wrote beautiful, heartfelt letters to his children since I never got to say goodbye. I never heard from them either, or his mother. One of the things I learned from Bob Cook was that having a moon in Scorpio as a woman means you are the mother to all. I got that. I felt like I lost an entire family. I really grew to love his children. I think that was one of the most painful parts of our separation, not being able to say goodbye. It broke my heart. Every day was torture for me as my hopeful heart held on. God sends nothing but angels. This is the hardest part, but I know it's the truth. On another level, my beloved soul chose to be the one to help me move through my issues and finally heal the last unresolved part of me that was hanging around. And I chose it as well. How could I have healed my abandonment issue if I had no one that I truly love abandon me? I loved him so much that his walking away from me was exactly what my soul needed. There was darkness in me that I was still harboring, even though I had done so much introspection and work on myself over the last 14 years. I had ignored one last piece. Final integration. When I was little, I loved putting puzzles together. My brothers and I had jigsaw puzzle contests that I usually won. It was one of the things I was good at. I picture myself as a jigsaw puzzle. I was almost 100% put together except for one piece that wasn't quite securely fitting yet. This was the abandonment piece. It was still a loose piece of the puzzle. Every time I was in an intimate relationship, it would get triggered, even though whatever situation was coming up had nothing to do with what was going on presently. I would then react from past trauma, a place of fear and insecurity, and not from love. It wasn't pretty or healthy for anyone. Now, thanks to my beloved, I got the opportunity to finally face, heal, integrate, and secure the final piece of my jigsaw puzzle. The only way through the pain was the pain itself. My puzzle is complete. So now the piece, P-I-E-C-E, has transformed into peace, P-E-A-C-E. Side note, that's a really good one. When I first met my beloved, I learned from Spirit that our relationship was of the highest divine light, that he was an aspect of me, here to birth a newness and creation within my being. After he left, I learned that my soul chose to experience this abandonment so I could be free once and for all of the darkness I was harboring. This was the newness and creation they were talking about. I had no idea it was going to happen in this excruciating, painful way. I keep reminding myself, I chose this. Note to soul, next lifetime, take the easy path. Being accountable. I couldn't heal this part of me alone. That is why we need each other. And that is why with each sorrow or pain always comes bearing a gift, if you can seize the opportunity to sit with it and look within to find the healing. Some of our greatest lessons and gains on the earth school are made when we are in states of seeming crisis. But we need to put our ego and pride aside, and that is not something that is easy to do all the time. We need to be meditating, or at least finding time and space for solitude, quiet reflection, or contemplation. We need to be awake and aware, smarter than the ego. The ego is very cunning and will keep us shackled under its control by doing the blame game and the denial game. Time heals all wounds is another socially programmed lie we tell ourselves. All time is a buffer, hiding your wounds in the background, ready to jump out on the next unsusceptible person who triggers them. It doesn't really heal anything. The only cure for the pain is the pain. If I wasn't taking the time to do the spiritual practice and the work on myself, I wouldn't have been ready for this. I would have done what I always did in the past. My old self would have gotten angry and defensive, spouting out, "Fine, you're a loss," and gotten rid of all our pictures, deleted him from my phone and laptop, and trashed all the things he gave me so I wouldn't have any reminders of him. Then I would have made a list of all the negative traits I see in him and how he was not really a good partner anyway, and moved on. I am good at that. I would have focused on his transgressions and blamed him, then moved on, unhealed, to do more damage. Muscle memory. It seemed like his life was conveniently set up just for me to trigger all of my wounds. Looking back now, I can find humor in it, although at the time it was nothing but conflict, turmoil, and distress. Only God and Spirit could have orchestrated such a perfect match. To give you an example, my beloved would tell me he wanted to do something that was different from what we had planned without me. A reasonable request, right? Why then did my immediate reaction was to be sick, to have a sick feeling in my gut? It was like the universe said, "Here you go. You have abandonment issues. Let's amplify it 100 times and give you a partner who also has the same issues, plus poor communication skills, and his way of dealing with it is walking away and shutting down and then ultimately abandoning you. Perfect." I wondered, did I do something wrong? Was he about to leave me? It had nothing to do with the present moment, of course. Let's call it muscle memory. As soon as I got the sick feeling in my gut, it was my old wounds being triggered. My mind began to wander down a road of imagination of what was really happening or what his ulterior motives were, making up stories in my head when all I wanted to do was just something different. A simple change in plans triggered the A-bomb. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how I felt. Hysterical equals historical. Before I was aware of what was happening, I would go into fear and panic and start to manipulate him to make him feel guilty for doing something without me or changing plans. I became the actor, the director, and the producer of our movie, leaving him without a role. Sometimes it would work and I would get my way, but really, I was sabotaging the relationship. He would give in to me because I can be pretty stubborn at times. On top of the guilt and manipulation, I unleashed an emotional tsunami on him. He would then shut down, retreat, and abandon me, the thing I was trying to avoid in the first place. This was how I became his jailer, not his lover. Love and freedom are synonymous. I was doing the exact opposite. I was acting out of fear, not love. It soothed my abandonment issues, but only temporary. It was just a Band-Aid. All it did was wear away at our relationship. Being this needy and insecure is a sure way to drive any man away, which I did. My daughter's therapist gave me a mantra when I was 28 years old. Loose lips sink ships. I had no idea at the time how true that statement was. Boy, did I sink many ships. Coming out of the crazy, rewriting the script. In order for me to change this destructive pattern, I had to relearn new patterns and rewire my subconscious programming. In the moment it was happening. The first step was becoming aware when it was my past muscle memory being triggered and not let it take over. The second step was not reacting with my old sabotaging ways. And finally, rewriting the script, reacting in a new healthy way. I could say something like, okay, that's great, have a good time, and mean it, or whatever. The point is taking different action with a better reaction. The only way to do that is by staying awake and aware in the present moment, because it happened so fast. I was starting to get better at it, even though it was challenging. There were times when I overcame them and times when I did not. Sometimes the best I could do was say, okay, take a deep breath, walk away, and talk to him later when I was more rational. Sometimes I let him walk away and call later when I was more sane and apologize. When I was in a more calm state, we would talk for hours and I would feel a shift inside, returning my power back to me. It was very healing to have a witness to this event. It felt so good and I began to trust him that he understood what I was going through. The breath is what gives us the space to make a healthy, positive reaction and not respond with anger and insecurity from past fear. The breath awakens our energy and helps release the old patterns. Changing the subconscious patterns. If you want to change your life, change your life. Einstein's definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results, is seen on a micro and macro level. Change will not stick if it's not changed in the physical realm. Talking about changing doesn't change anything. I know people who talk and talk about what they want different in their lives, but never take any steps to make it happen. Yoga philosophy reminds us that all our knowledge comes through experience. Therefore, there must be an altered action taken. Remember when recycling bags first started coming out at the supermarket? I bought a couple which were left in the car every time I went into the supermarket. I'm sure many of you can relate. Without fail, every time I got up to the register, I realized I left my bags in the car. After I rushed to the store, trying to escape as fast as possible since I'm not a big fan of shopping and get anxiety if I'm in the supermarket too long. There was no way I was going to lose my place online to get my bags, so I would just settle and take the plastic bags and say to myself, next time you have to remember them. Then one day I was frustrated enough. I had it. I left my full shopping cart with the cashier, didn't care if I lost my turn in line, and walked out to my car to get my bags. I mean, it's really no big deal if you think about it, but at the time it felt like it. I thought it would stress me out more, but it actually felt good. Since that day, I never forget my bags. For a change to happen in the physical realm, it can't just remain a thought in your head, in the mental realm. It has to be brought down into our physical body. We have to take action and do something different to create that change. It may make us uncomfortable temporarily, but that is the only way we can grow. We don't grow if we stay in our comfort zone. Change first has to start with awareness. Easy when it's plastic bags at the supermarket, harder when it's your old wounds lashing out on your sweetie. 1. Recognize the pattern, awareness. 2. Make amends if you need to, atonement. 3. Take different action, action. With intimate relationships, we have all the emotions that go along with it, plus the dynamics of another person. But if we want to truly walk our walk, not just talk our talk, we need to apply our spiritual knowledge to every area of our life, especially in relationships. Unless you are a hermit, there's no getting around being in relationships on this earth plane. It's why we're here. The hypocrite. The final piece I had to learn to do was take that self-motivation from my teachings and apply it to my relationships, something I was still not doing. One of my students, who became a friend and spiritual guide, had the courage to say something as I was sharing a struggle I was having in my relationship with my beloved. He said, "How could you be all spiritual and teach yoga and not apply that to your relationship with your boyfriend?" Touché. Sometimes we forget that. My beloved called me hypocrite during one of our arguments, which caused us to spend one night apart on our romantic vacation in Aruba. Even if we are in one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, if we still have a pissy mind, we will be unhappy. Looking back now, I see that he was right, and that's why I reacted so defensively. It is these relationships that trigger us and push our buttons. They are doing that to give us an opportunity to look deeper and heal those broken parts of us. Rumi, the wound is the place where the light enters you. Peace in your heart, peace in your family, peace with your beloved, peace with your neighbors, peace with your community, peace with your country, peace with the world. If we skip some of these parts, we are not completely peaceful. We see it often in society, strangers being cordial to you in the store, then go to their car and yell at their kids. I used to do that with my daughter, and I was doing that to my beloved. It is our closest relationships that tempt us to take out the daggers, but this is where we must practice what we preach.